It is election day for the Arizona Coyotes Tempe Arena. But you know what? What happens if this vote is no? Is this team on their way out? Are they going to Atlanta? We'll discuss.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm your host, Robin Leonio. That's Matthew Jacobson, also known as the AZ Sports Guy. In today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast, we got a great show for on today's episode. It is Election Day. It is officially the day we find out what happens in the upcoming election. Matthew, you had a really good, really good tease out there because there is a real chance that the vote could be a no because it is a public vote. Mm-hmm. There's a really good chance that people out there and say, hey, we don't want this.
Yeah, and it is part of the risk when you put it to the public opinion. But you know what? That is how their democracy works. And I realize now I have a Thrashers jersey right outside this door. I should have put that as my backdrop for it. But maybe I'll do that whenever the real host is talking, because as you can tell at the cold open, I am not the actual host. But yeah, no, that's a realistic possibility. And while I don't think it will happen, well, if you've been following any of the Tempe City Council members on Twitter, Randy Keating himself was talking about how this has been a historic turnout so far. And we're recording it a little early. You're going to listen to it on Election Day. So, Carefree was almost at 100%. A turn-in rate, and it was like 60% with Tempe. People are very much having strong opinions, and they are going to the polls. So I'm confident, but let's say it's a no. Let's say it's a lot of angry Karens that are like, not in my backyard.
Yeah, and that really does the question: what happens to the Coyotes? Do they, as everyone has been trying to report, just up and move the very next week? Well, let's go ahead and stop everyone right now. The answer is no. They are not going to move the very next week if this is a no. They're not going to move this summer if it is a no. They're not going to move the next couple of years if it is a no.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be a big oaf just going Humpty Dumpty right now, but I forgot the prop. There's the prop. If it's a no vote, they're going to Atlanta, boys. If you're wondering, I got this Tucson jersey back when I was still a much thinner man.
I love it. But let's really go into the into the aspect because the people who say the Coyotes will relocate if this is a no, which, let's be real, will not be the case.
Yeah, no, it won't. Look, I'm not going to name any specific people, right? There have been some very high-profile individuals, been some very interesting individuals. Oh, I could see them relocating as soon as next year. Oh, this will seal their... Well, I saw one tweet today. This will seal their fate. It won't. Whether it's a yes or a no vote, it will not seal their fate immediately because the NHL is... They put way too much effort to let the team go with one no vote. There would be a buffer period, all right? If you go to any of the council meetings, there are backup plans. Like, the Coyotes, of course, are not going to lead with those because how would you feel, Robin, if I'm gonna butcher this, but I'm gonna try anyway. You are interested in an individual. They are smart, charming, whatever, but they're like, I got 3 other partners waiting in the wings. Are you gonna feel very motivated to want to engage in that relationship?
No, absolutely not. Because the idea, and I think the reason why the Coyotes here are so invested in Tempe right now, and it's the way it's like look, the Tempe wants to be told, like, we only have our eyes for you. We think you are the perfect spot. And let's be real, Tempe is the perfect spot.
Yes.
But, in this sense, like, you look at it, like, you just got, the Coyotes are just, like, looking at them in the eyes, like, dead in center, like, we wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
And it's like, to be fair, that this is
really,
the best spot.
that helped them get to, like, essentially that really, I mean, the really good deal that they put together,
Mm-hmm.
but also the fact that, the Coyotes shown that they really want to be in Tempe, and kind of like, putting out all their chips, like what appears like all their chips in Tempe, kind of helped swing that to eventually be that 7-0 vote that we got back in November.
Yep, because they had a very good pitch, very good project. And also, one last time, I just want to give kudos to the Tempe City Council for literally turning this deal for something that was maybe a little bit like there are some benefits for the Coyotes to, all those risks are going on you now. Like, there's a lot of things they negotiated to make this a very good deal. It's also another reason why I think it passes. But if it doesn't, no, they're not relocating immediately. Now, that does not mean that the NHL doesn't have a contingency plan where if you don't have something else going in X months, I think it's 3 to 6, but it will be a buffer period. If you don't have something else ready to go, then yes, they will. Whether it's Houston, this new Atlanta project down the line, they're not going to Quebec City. I'm not even entertaining that, but wherever they would end up theoretically going, but there would very likely be a buffer period. Now, what do you think that buffer period would be? Let's say the vote is no. It's 90-10 no. It is just an outright vicious, we don't want these people here no. What do you think the next steps are, and what do you think the buffer period would theoretically be?
It's going to be more than a year because, you have to take into consideration that, the Coyotes put a lot of money to be able to, be allowed to play 3 to 4 years at Mullet Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to go ahead and just leave within a month or whatever, like, hey, that's just makes no sense. Right? So, they spend another season, maybe another 2 seasons in Arizona while they figure out their next move. If that's what they want to do, right? If they decide, you know what, Arizona's done, we're getting out of here. It's gonna take at the very least another season. Like next off season is when they start. Like even like say during the season they start looking, but next off season is when wheels would start moving. But it would take maybe like another half a season until it's like, oh, I think this nice plot of land in Houston or this nice plot of land in Kansas City, who knows?
I know Kansas City has that nice arena that they built X amount of years ago, and I feel for you, Kansas City. Look, I'm not saying the Ducks should move. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you have 2 teams along the same highway and like a 30-minute, it's like more like a 10, 15-minute stretch, but California time, 30-minute stretch, maybe Kansas City should have had their building by now. But I definitely think that if the votes no, regardless, they would not be moving as soon as next season because you would not be able to quickly enough get everything on board. Like, yeah, if they absolutely needed to, like Marullo, it's a no vote, and he just throws his hands in the air, and you recreate the Atlanta going to Winnipeg, sure, but they're not the same situation, and it would be minimum. Like I said, I'm saying 3 to 6 months because that's about the time where you'd already be almost at the end of the season, almost at the end of next season, or at least the midpoint. You should have something else already signed by then if
Right.
you're going to have everything built in time, because even right now, there is still a decent chance they would have to negotiate a 5th year at Mullet, depending on how long remediation takes for the current project, if there's any lawsuits, anything that would delay it. So there's already potentially that. So you're not just, all right, it's no, they're gone. I hurt my finger, sorry. I can't snap. They're gone, they're going tomorrow. It would take probably at least a full season. You might get it announced at the end of next season if there's nothing else, sure. But they're not just, I can see them moving immediately. No. it doesn't work again unless Murillo's like, all right, I'm going back to Vegas and I'm gonna go run my casinos.
No, it's definitely not. It would take a long time, but I'm a little bit more optimistic in the sense that they won't leave Arizona at all. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, a quick word from our sponsors on the show.
Let's talk about Gametime. So, Gametime is an app that gets you some tickets because ticket buying shouldn't be stressful. I know it is, and you know why, but we're not going to get into that today. But buying tickets should not be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals and last-minute tickets, then their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have in the Tempe Entertainment District. Recently, I went to an Arizona Diamondbacks game because I do actually enjoy just sitting there and relaxing in the baseball atmosphere. And I do need a platform to get some tickets, don't I? So, Gametime is the place for the last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means that you'll always get the best price, and if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, they will credit you 110% of the difference because they want to make sure you get a good deal. So, snag your tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, low price guarantee.
Thanks again, everyone, for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Once again, including on the SiriusXM radio app. Be sure to also tune in and join us tonight as the Tempe Entertainment District election results are revealed. We will have our live reactions on the show. You'll definitely not want to miss that. But let's talk more about what could potentially happen if this is a no, Matthew, because, well, we talked about, it's like, hey, look, what would the process look like if the Coyotes relocate? But let's be real. Alex Morello has a huge venture in the gambling industry. Right now, Arizona is one of the few states in which sports betting is actually legal within the state limits. Many states, very many states, do not allow this right now. Why would he move to a state that doesn't allow sports betting when he's literally kind of centering himself in the idea of, one way to make money is through that. He owns a freaking casino, for God's sake.
Which also technically would mean that, again, it's no. It's 90% no. They get demolished tonight. Like, it is awful. It is like every horror story you could imagine. You're telling me right now with the good relationships, the Arizona Coyotes organization, and I'm actually really happy they have done this for many reasons, not just this cynical additional reason. They have good relationships with the tribes in Arizona, is because that is a match made in heaven right there. You'd have revenue splitting, obviously. You wouldn't have the maximum kind of revenue that Murillo could get with just Tempe Entertainment District. You're telling me right now that beautiful plot of land right there, I believe it's Salt River Indian Community, that land belongs to. You tell me that wouldn't be a match made in heaven. Still same centralized location, and these two entities meeting.
Just kitty corner away.
So it's like you'd still have that, and then as was implied, right? Because the paraphrase, I want to get as close to the quote as possible, was the paraphrase was one of the no votes at the time that did change. It wasn't the individuals no longer on the Tempe City Council saying, why didn't you bring this to other cities that were interested? And it was implied. There are other Arizona cities. The first one that came to mind to me was probably Mesa, Scottsdale, or Chandler. And it's like, well, Tempe is the best location for it. But if there's a no, you're telling me right now that in a 3 to 6 month period, they can't get something together with one of those cities or the Salt River Indian community. Should they be interested in joining that venture? You're telling me right now that isn't a logical thing, and all this on public record.
Right. And I mean, let's say, for all intents and purposes, that the Salt River community kind of doesn't want to deal with this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have almost no doubt in my mind that Mesa or Chandler would be interested. No, almost no doubt in my mind that Mesa or Chandler is interested.
And there's
I
some
mean,
open
Mesa already
land.
has the Coyotes Community Ice Center. Like, that's where the Kachinas play. The Kachinas play in Mesa, so like, hey, have a way to grow the game more on that side.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, Mesa would be perfect. I think there is like a pretty big plot of land, like multiple giant plots of land running along the north end of 202 Red Mountain, kind of like through North Mesa, like right on that northern border. Like, why not build there? Because you're right off the 202, you can easily get there.
Yeah, and again, the land's also there because I've done a lot of manual labor jobs in my time, from concrete to electrical. I've spent a lot of time in the East Valley, specifically Chandler, and yeah, there's still plenty of land. Also, I would not advocate for it being this far, but like Gilbert could still be an option. It would probably be a little closer to the Glendale of the East Valley, not because it's a bad location, like not because it's a bad city, but because the location's a little further out. But there's still plenty of those cities that are in the East Valley that I guarantee would have an interest. And while it wouldn't be as big of a project, you could still do something there.
Because the further out of the East Valley, like the Southeast Valley, you have the ability to expand. The reason why the Tempe deal, for example, was so lucrative is because it's a landlocked city, and the Coyotes are trying to purchase the last piece of land available.
Mm-hmm.
The other cities, it's like, hey, we have a lot of land. We can deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's probably a little scaled down from what it is now, depending on probably just because like Tempe really is that perfect spot to have all of this, but it would still be a massive, at least $1.8 billion project if it was anywhere else. And you're telling me right now that other cities wouldn't be interested in that? It wouldn't like just a little piece of that income coming in. So even if the vote is no, and this entire episode is the vote is no, and it's hypothetical, like this team is pathetic, they couldn't get nothing, and it's still like, look at all these logical options. It's also why, and I'm going to be very tame when I say this, but look for local options when you're trying to get coverage for things going on. Like, I've been watching a lot of the content creator talking about the Oakland A's situation, and one of their arena deals, they wanted $500 million in public money and to be essentially like a tax-free like districts. Like they keep either their property tax exempt or they keep the sales tax. Is a weird way he broke it down. Like, always try to get the local perspective or someone that is like very knowledgeable on, because someone in Toronto very likely doesn't even know Mesa is a thing, let alone that Mesa might potentially be an option or interested. So it's like the no does not mean they're gone.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because like, with, and I'm not gonna point out any names or anything on this one, but like within our own network, it was just like, a couple people were like, I've been hearing insider talk about this, and I'm like, and I'm thinking like, dude, you live in what, freaking Pennsylvania? Like, you are as far, like, I am right here in the center of it all. I have an ear to, like, maybe not everything, but I have enough of an ear to know the lay of the land here. We know how it works here. The valley, is massive. It's not just Glendale, Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tempe. There was more, a lot more.
Yeah, there is. There's also other sites that like could potentially just get knocked down. Hey, we don't need this anymore. Hey, there's land here or there. The quickest example I'm going to come up with, because I don't know what they're redeveloping it for, but when Paradise Valley Mall closed, that's not an insignificant portion of land. So it's like there's always potential for redevelopment, or even the Metro Center, which I think now they're finally like revamping stuff over there, and like part of it's a park and ride. Like, whenever something is no longer useful for X, Y can always pop up. So, just
another example,
you jump to relocation.
In Mesa, it's a lot smaller plot of land, but the Fiesta Mall is actually getting demolished. For those who know in that area, it's literally nothing. It's just another abandoned mall. Just another decent example. But we're going to go ahead and close off our thoughts, kind of give a little bit more, maybe try to bring in a little, even more optimism as much as we can. But we're still answering the question: what if the answer is no? We're going to get to that, all that and more on today's episode in just a sec. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on the show. And today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I just want to let you guys all know that I run a busy schedule, which means sometimes I admittedly don't have all the time to get the daily nutrition and vitamins I need for the day. That's why I'm glad that I'm able to turn to AG1 from Athletic Greens. It is your one-stop shop of more than 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens, help you get your day started right. Just one scoop of this special blend, and you are on your way to improve and support your gut health, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, focus, and aging. It's lifestyle friendly, so if you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it works for you. And best of all, it costs less than $3 a day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Once again, it's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Once again, I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We really appreciate you tuning in. As another reminder, once again, just be sure to tune in tonight to our live show as we have our reactions to the Tempe Entertainment District election, Props 301, 302, and 303. We're going to continue our conversation about, well, what if the answer is no, Matthew? Because, we talked about, hey, look, first of all, what's the timeline of them relocating if they do? But now we take a look at, and then we took a look at, okay, here are these other cities. In your mind, what, in the realistic mind, how do you envision the worst case scenario?
The absolute worst case scenario, trying to be realistic.
Realistic worst case scenario.
All right, realistic worst case scenario. I'll go with that because it's looking like a historic turnout. 90-10, like it's a no, flat out rejected. And I just want to kind of touch on it real quick. Mayor Corey Woods is already on record that if any of these propositions is voted no on, because they all three need to pass for the arena to go forward, they will not re-enter negotiations with the Coyotes. So one kind of implied talking point from the no campaign is that, we want to go back, to the drawing board with this. Well, it would not involve the Coyotes in any way, shape, or form because the public would have said no, and the Tempe City Council, rightfully so, wants to honor the public's wishes. So it's massive flop of a campaign. It's no. Then, for the worst possible scenario, the Salt River Indian community has no interest. Let's say they have a different plan for the land, or they're just like, we can think of something better, something else will come up, and that's just the term knows about it. All right, 0 for 1, 0 for 2. Then the only other city that has any interest is Gilbert, which is a little further out. And I like Gilbert, used to live there, but it would be more of a Glendale than I would like. It might work better, but might not. So that's what you're looking at. Just potential worst is it's probably not financially viable. Hands up in the air. All right, I guess let's sell this team. And then it depends on what the timeline to be. Kansas City and Quebec both have arenas. It just depends on if there's any ownership, and then you have this new Atlanta project, so it's entirely possible it could be like finish out, get the 4th-year option, finish out your years at ASU and give them time to build that, or if there's an owner in Houston, because they also do have an arena. I'm not sure if it can work for hockey. It's a basketball arena, but hey, that wouldn't be our problem anymore. We would have another America West arena.
Absolutely. Well, that gives you, and that does seem like, a pretty realistic scenario if this is a no, or like a resounding no.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, that's just business, right? It happens. I think so many people here would probably be upset to see that happen. I think every other hockey fan that lives north of, let's just say north of the border, will be cheering like crazy, and I would hate to hear the end of it.
But hey, we still have to be on that show being like, they're gone. All right. But it's like, I still don't even think like, and that's the most extreme.
Yeah.
I still think if it doesn't pass, at worst, it would be 60-40. That's my gut. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, it is what it is. But it's like, that's just my gut on like if it was a no. And the most realistic no for me really is it's a close vote and they get into bed with either the Salt River Indian community or like Mesa Chandler. Yeah. Like that's just the most logical. There might it depends on where Scottsdale technically ends because there is some open land over there on the 202.
Way north end of Scottsdale, like chilling all the way up there, like it's close to Carefree and Cave Creek. Like,
put it in Carefree. Why not? Glendale 3.0.
Oh my god, I can only imagine.
What do you think is the worst possible no scenario, or is the most realistic no scenario?
I think the most realistic no scenario. I think it's very similar to yours. Let's say it ends up being like 90-10 no. Scottsdale says no. SRP MIC says no. Mesa Chandler says no. And like you said, Gilbert's the only decision. I just don't think that's possible. I know because with the talks that Atlanta and Houston are pretty close to wanting a quote expansion team. Expansion isn't possible. Like Gary Bettman doesn't want an expansion right now. It opens the door. I think that's what they start making the discussion to do that. Like I said in the first segment, it's gonna take a while. It will take a while until that happens. So like we'll still be on the air. We'll still be talking about the Arizona Coyotes at Mullet Arena for the next 2 seasons at the minimum.
And even if it's after that 6-month buffer, then it's like, okay, time's up. Like it's not going to happen. So then you start the relocation stuff. I'm assuming they would still make them finish out the lease. Like with the A's, they're probably going to have to finish out the lease over there in Oakland. Yep. You'd still have at least that one last year in Mullet. So regardless, you're still stuck with this bearded beauty for the next couple years unless Locked On gets tired of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. But as we get towards the final minutes of the show, like let's kind of bring it back because this is all saying it's a no. I think you and I are both confident it won't be that. It's going to be a yes because I think polling was showing like what initially like 70% of Tempeans love the Coyotes and that they'd like to see something there. And then once it got to referendum, I think it got to like 60-40, in like early polling of what the referendum would look like. Mm-hmm. I said this on the air, and those that listen to the show every day kind of already know my thought about this from earlier in the year, that it would have had taken a really drastic, like super dumb move from Alex Morello. Like he had to do something completely boneheaded for him to lose that 20% margin.
Mm-hmm. And he hasn't done it. The only blemish, and I said it on my separate channels, was the only blemish was when the Coyotes were in the agreement to fund the special election, which to me made logical sense. It still does make logical sense. It's the only thing on the ballot or the main thing on the ballot.
Right.
But there's an Arizona regulation against that, and Mayor Corey Woods said that they're not going to actually enforce that. That is the only blemish so far. Everything else from the no campaign, anything else from critics of it, has been something that has been very easy to hand wave away as not being remotely true, being at best like a half truth, and even then like not really, or just being idiotic. So it's like I don't see it. Like the initial reports of the first polling was about 60-40. The initial before all the big stuff came out. That's what everyone's like, there's these shady dealings going on, despite the fact that an RFP process is very simple. You put it out, you get people that have put in their bids, you cannot speak to one another until the first meeting to discuss it. And it was still 60-40 despite all the shady dealings allegedly going on.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing that like does kind of put me into question, because I think like I'm trying to figure this out, and like what it exactly means. Maybe you have an opinion on this,
Mm-hmm.
but because out of the turnout right now, out of the over 30,000, I think around 30,000 ballots that have been returned, the majority of them have come from the south side of the city, which is away from where it's going to be, because it's going to be in the north side of the city, right off the Salt River.
Mm-hmm.
Does that maybe kind of give you an idea of maybe where the trend's going to go?
If it's anything like Phoenix, and I've mostly lived in the West Valley, so I'm trying to be like as here's my local knowledge. North Phoenix is where the money's at. South Phoenix is where not the money's at. So if it's anything similar in Tempe, that would mean a vast majority more of working class individuals would be voting. And you're telling me additional jobs, additional tax benefits for the city, additional money in affordable housing doesn't sound appealing to a working class individual. Like it's a no-brainer, at least in my opinion. But then again, that's only if I can map Phoenix and Tempe like with similar trends and demographics.
Yeah, which makes sense, because I think one of the people that a few of the people that were came to the meetings as against the project were people that were like closer to ASU, people who lived in the Riverside district area, the Riverside neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
which is literally right next to where they want to build. I think Riverside is like what, a block over from
Yeah,
where they
it's like a
technically
stone's
be.
throw. Like you're on
Yeah,
this little road, landfills here. Sorry, compost yard, and you have these nice
I mean,
apartments
technically,
and
it still is
houses.
landfill. If you look at some of the descriptions on there, it says pre-strive landfill on it. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep, within the
um,
city. Yep, it's pre-strive, everything internally. But I'm just going off Google Maps because people in Toronto can Google the
yeah,
compost yard.
yeah, Tempe compost yard, and like the Tempe facilities something or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's something very plain and bureaucratic.
Yeah, and, which again currently is generating nothing. So yeah, so we can talk about what happens when it's no, but you and I, like I said, as we ready to close things up, because we're a little over half an hour at this point, we're pretty confident, right? It's going to be a
It's going to
yes.
be a yes.
It's going
I'm
to be
on
a
record
yes.
as saying 70-30.
And in about a month from now, shovel's going to hit the ground. Um, I'm going to try to be at the groundbreaking ceremony. I think a lot of people whose media will try to be at the groundbreaking ceremony, but no, let's not try to think too far ahead. Let's
Does
at
that
least.
mean I'm not invited? I mean, like, I'm just some random guy, essentially, like, in my
You are
mom's
now officially
basement.
media, so you are going to be there. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be there.
Robin just pulled out the baseball bat. You can either show up or you lose your kneecaps. Like, do you value your kneecaps? That's what I was asked live on air. I don't know Morse code, so I can't do the whole a bit where I'm like trying to do Morse code, but help.
Anyways, though, any final thoughts you'd like to share before we close things off on this episode?
It'll be a yes vote, and I'm gonna hype it up right now. All right, hype it up. It will be a yes vote. We're gonna be live. We're gonna be making fun of politically correctly, making fun of people that we're haters throughout it. And if the vote is no, I'm gonna have so much egg on my face. So you know what? It's gonna be a yes.
Absolutely. Well, once again, that kind of teases things at this. Once again, as a reminder, be sure to tune into us tonight. We'll probably be live at some around I think 7 o'clock, to kind of before, like about an hour before the reported results will be dropped. So we will talk. We will be live around then, kind of keep sharing some thoughts, interact with a lot of you guys. If we get some comments, we will 100% talk to you guys. But we'll definitely want to tune in. But that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast. Once again, as always, on YouTube and on the Sirius XM radio app. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robin_Leano. Matthew is at the AZ Sports Guy. Be sure to interact with us. Ask a question that you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys staying safe out there. Hope you guys staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.